Science has given us so much: modern medicine, incredible technology, and a window into the secrets of the universe. But what happens when the quest for answers goes too far? When ambition, arrogance, or just plain cruelty takes over, and the pursuit of knowledge leads to disaster. These are the stories of when science went horribly, horribly wrong, leaving behind death, destruction, and lessons that haunt us to this day. We're counting down the top 10 scientific experiments that went horribly wrong. Number 10. The Kola Super Deep Borehole. Kicking off our list is an experiment that wasn't exactly evil, but it was an incredible display of ambition meeting a brick wall. In 1970, Soviet scientists wanted to drill as deep as they possibly could into the Earth's crust. The goal was simple: to see what's down there. For over 20 years they drilled, reaching an astounding depth of over 12 kilometers, or 7.5 miles. That's deeper than the deepest part of the ocean. But down there, the planet had other ideas. Temperatures shot up to 180 degrees Celsius, 356 degrees Fahrenheit, double what they'd planned for. This basically turned the rock into a thick plastic goo. Drills melted and broke, and the hole started collapsing on itself. Faced with insurmountable heat and ballooning costs, the project that was once a symbol of Soviet might was quietly shut down in 1994. While no one died, the Kola Super Deep Borehole is a monumental reminder. No matter how advanced our tech gets, there are some frontiers nature just isn't ready for us to cross. Number 9. The Michelson-Morley Experiment. Sometimes a failed experiment can be the best thing that ever happened to science. Back in 1887, physicists Albert Michelson and Edward Morley were trying to prove the existence of something called the luminiferous ether. For centuries, scientists just assumed that light needed some kind of invisible medium to travel through space, like sound needs air. This was the ether, and their experiment was designed to detect the ether wind as Earth moved through it. They used a clever device called an interferometer to split a beam of light and send it on 2 different paths. If this ether wind was real, one beam should have been slowed down, creating a telltale pattern when they were recombined. But here's the thing: it never worked. No matter how many times they tried, they found nothing. The experiment was a total failure in its mission to find the ether. And yet, this spectacular failure was one of the most important in history. It proved the ether didn't exist and that the speed of light is constant. This baffling result was exactly what a young patent clerk named Albert Einstein needed to develop his game-changing theory of special relativity just 18 years later. Number 8. The Monster Study. In 1939, an experiment as monstrous as its name was conducted at the University of Iowa. Speech pathologist Wendell Johnson believed stuttering was a learned behavior caused by kids being criticized for normal speech hiccups. To prove it, he and his student, Mary Tudor, took 22 orphans, some who stuttered and some who didn't, and split them into 2 groups. One group got positive therapy, praised for their fluency. The other group, which included kids who spoke perfectly, was subjected to constant negative feedback. They were told they had a stutter, belittled for every tiny mistake, and labeled defective. The results were heartbreaking. The children who were told they stuttered, even the ones who started out fluent, developed serious speech problems and became anxious, withdrawn, and insecure. These psychological scars lasted a lifetime. The study was so shameful it was hidden for decades. When it finally came to light in 2001, the University of Iowa issued a formal apology, and the state paid nearly $1 million to the surviving orphans whose lives were permanently scarred by this cruel search for answers. Number 7. The Trinity Test. On July 16, 1945, in the New Mexico desert, the world was violently introduced to the atomic age. The Trinity Test was the very first detonation of a nuclear bomb, the climax of the top-secret Manhattan Project. But in the desperate race to build the bomb, scientists made a catastrophic oversight. They knew the test would create radioactive fallout, but they completely underestimated how far it would spread. They paid little attention to the thousands of civilians living nearby. The government called the site remote, but tens of thousands of people lived within a 50-mile radius. They weren't warned, they weren't evacuated, and they weren't told about the danger. As the iconic mushroom cloud climbed into the sky, it carried tons of radioactive particles. These particles fell like a fine ash on homes, crops, and water supplies. In the following months and years, the people of the region, now known as downwinders, saw a terrifying spike in infant mortality. This was followed by soaring rates of cancer and other radiation-linked diseases that have haunted families for generations. The Trinity test was a scientific success, but for the unsuspecting American citizens nearby, it was the start of a tragic legacy of sickness and death. Number 6. The Stanford Prison Experiment. How much of your personality is really you, and how much is just the role you're playing? In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo tried to find out, and the answer was so disturbing he had to shut the whole thing down. For the Stanford Prison Experiment, 24 healthy male college students were paid to be part of a 2-week study. They were randomly assigned to be either a prisoner or a guard in a makeshift prison in the basement of Stanford's psychology building. What happened next was a terrifyingly fast descent into cruelty. Almost immediately, the guards, given uniforms, sunglasses, and unchecked authority, began to act sadistically. They mentally tortured the prisoners with humiliating tasks and sleep deprivation. The prisoners, in turn, became passive and depressed, showing signs of severe emotional distress. One prisoner had a complete breakdown and had to be released in just 36 hours. The situation spiraled so far out of control that Zimbardo, who was acting as the prison superintendent, was forced to end the 2-week experiment after only 6 days. It's now a landmark study in psychology, but it's also a textbook example of unethical research that inflicted real psychological harm. Number 5. Project MKUltra. At the height of the Cold War, the CIA was paranoid about brainwashing and mind control. This paranoia gave birth to one of the most infamous and illegal research programs in American history, Project MKUltra. From 1953 until it was officially ended in 1973, the CIA conducted hundreds of secret experiments to figure out how to crack the human mind. The agency used everything from hypnosis and sensory deprivation to electroshocks and, most famously, high doses of psychedelic drugs like LSD. These tests were often performed on people who had no idea they were part of an experiment: mental patients, prisoners, and prostitutes. The CIA specifically targeted people they called those who could not fight back. It's been widely reported that in one case, a patient at a Kentucky mental institute was fed LSD for 174 days straight. The program was a total failure that caused severe psychological trauma and even death for some of its victims. We may never know the full story because the CIA director had most of the records destroyed in 1973, but MKUltra remains a chilling example of a government operating completely outside the bounds of law and basic human decency. These stories are pretty shocking, and believe me, they only get more intense from here. If you find these cautionary tales from the history of science fascinating, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Okay, back to the countdown. Number 4. The Guatemala Syphilis Study. Just when you think it can't possibly get any worse, it does. From 1946 to 1948, the U.S. Public Health Service, working with the Guatemalan government, conducted a series of truly horrifying experiments. Their goal was to test penicillin on sexually transmitted diseases. But to do that, the American researchers decided they needed to deliberately infect people first. Over 5,500 vulnerable Guatemalans were entered into the study without any kind of consent. Of those, around 1,300 were intentionally infected with syphilis, gonorrhea, and chancroid. The methods of infection were monstrous. Researchers paid infected prostitutes to visit prisoners. When that wasn't working fast enough, they started direct inoculations. They poured bacteria onto open wounds on the subjects' bodies. In some cases, they injected syphilis directly into their spines. While many subjects did get penicillin, the records are a mess. We know that at least 83 people died. The whole horrific study was kept secret until it was finally uncovered in 2010. This prompted a formal apology from the U.S. government for this dark, shameful chapter in medical history. This is perhaps the most infamous medical study in American history, the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male. It started in 1932 when the U.S. Public Health Service signed up 600 poor African-American sharecroppers from Macon County, Alabama. 399 of them had already contracted syphilis. The other 201 served as a control group. The men were told they were being treated for bad blood and were promised free medical care and meals for their participation. But it was all a lie. The real purpose of the study was to do nothing at all, to simply track the brutal, natural progression of syphilis if left completely untreated, all the way to death and autopsy. For 40 years, government researchers denied these men treatment. Even in the 1940s, when penicillin became the standard, miraculous cure for syphilis, the researchers actively prevented the men from getting it. By the time the study was finally exposed by the press and shut down in 1972, 128 of the men had died from syphilis or its complications. 40 of their wives had been infected, and 19 of their children had been born with the disease. The public outrage was so immense that it led to major reforms in research ethics to protect human subjects. Number 2. Unit 731. In the entire dark history of war, there are few things as horrifying as the actions of Unit 731. This was a top-secret biological and chemical warfare unit of the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II, operating in occupied China. Under the command of General Shiro Ishii, Unit 731 carried out lethal human experiments on a scale that is hard to comprehend. And holding the number 1 spot are the experiments that became the global symbol for pure medical evil, the Nazi experiments conducted in concentration camps during the Holocaust. From 1939 to 1945, Nazi doctors forced thousands of prisoners into agonizing and deadly experiments without a shred of consent. In camps like Auschwitz and Dachau, prisoners were treated as nothing more than human lab rats. Throughout history, we've witnessed scientific ambitions spiral into chilling experiments that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Take the infamous Tuskegee syphilis study, where hundreds of African-American men were left untreated for decades, all in the name of research. Or consider the MKUltra program, where unsuspecting individuals were subjected to mind control experiments using drugs and psychological manipulation. These harrowing tales serve as stark reminders that the quest for knowledge, devoid of ethical boundaries, can lead to unimaginable suffering. The lessons learned from these atrocities have forged the ethical standards we uphold today, ensuring that progress never comes at the cost of humanity. What experiment shocked you the most? Did we miss a major one? Share your thoughts in the comments.